Hello, this is Mr. Everton, and this is another video on ancient China. Last time we talked about the Qin Dynasty. Remember, Qin is pronounced Qin. And we talked about the ruler Qin Shi Huangdi, who united China under the Qin Dynasty. We talked about how Qin Shi Huangdi was a really ruthless but effective ruler who helped to unify China through, in part, rules about money and writing, but also through building projects by beginning the construction of the Great Wall. Today, we're going to talk about the end of the Qin Dynasty. We're going to talk about the Han Dynasty that replaced it. Please make sure you have your notes out, that you're turned to page 4.6, and that you're taking good detailed notes so that you can answer the question, how did the Han Dynasty create a golden age in China? Please make sure that you write a paragraph as an answer to that question at the end of these notes. So what was the Han Dynasty? Well, to remind you again, this is Shi Huangdi, and he was really cruel and unpopular. Remember, he believed in legalism, which said that people were bad and needed to be controlled through harsh rules and punishment. Well, that's not going to make you very popular. And when Shi Huangdi died, he thought that, his legacy would live on, that there would be a continuation of the Qin Dynasty, but instead the people revolted and overthrew his successor, and the Qin Dynasty was replaced with the Han Dynasty. The Han Dynasty would rule for 400 years, roughly, and it would be considered by many people to be a golden age of classical China. Remember, a golden age is a time period of great prosperity, economic prosperity that in turn leads to cultural achievements and accomplishments. So I want to talk about why the Han Dynasty was so successful. What did they do that made them a golden age? Well, for one thing, Confucianism is back. Confucius is back. Shi Huangdi hated Confucianism and banned Confucian books and executed Confucian scholars, but there were enough Confucian texts that were kept secretly in hiding during the Qin Dynasty that once it was over, Han China could bring Confucianism back and make it kind of the state religion, the official religion of China. Just a quick summary of Confucius's beliefs. Confucianism teaches filial piety, which remember means respect for elders. Confucianism teaches a code of politeness, and it teaches the importance of education. And education, that's really key here because education would become an important part of the government of Han China. Here you can see a school in Han China, and you see a bunch of students working at desks and submitting their work to teachers. You can see them bowing and kneeling before those teachers. But what they're working on learning are the classics of Confucianism, classic Confucian texts of history and literature that were thought to be incredibly important for Confucianism. This was all part of something called the civil service system. The Han Dynasty needed government officials, and it decided the best way to get them would be to implement this civil service system. So if you wanted to be a government official, first you went to school and you studied Confucian texts and you memorized large portions of them, and then you took an incredibly difficult exam. Here you see in the picture this man is submitting his final exam to be graded. And if the exam was good enough and you passed, then you could become a Han government official. So what does that have to do with a golden age? Well, this is incredibly important because it meant that the Han Dynasty had really effective leadership. It was rule based on merit. Only the best, the smartest, the wisest people who were the best able to solve problems would become government officials. And that meant that the Han Dynasty would be really effective at ruling and solving problems for China. So the civil service system helped to create a really strong, effective government. Another thing that helped Han China to be so successful was the Silk Road. And the Silk Road is all about trade. Now you might be thinking about a road like what you're used to driving on, like Route 250 or Route 29, and how when you want to buy something, you get on that road to go there. But the Silk Road is more complex than that. It's not really a road like you're thinking about. It's a series of trade routes. It's really a bunch of different stops, a bunch of trading posts that turned into cities, and different caravans of people going from one trading post to another. A lot of times these caravans were taking groups of camels or some other kind of pack animal. They would load them up with trade goods, and then they would go from trading post to trading post in order to turn a profit. Here's a map of the different trading routes that make up the Silk Road. You can see that there is a land route, which is the color orangish yellow, and there's also a sea route, which is the color blue. Also notice that the Silk Road connects China on the far eastern side of the map all the way across Central Asia through Mesopotamia and to ancient Rome, which we haven't talked about yet, but that's really important. The Roman Empire was functioning, it was around at this time, and China, while not ever interacting with Rome directly, was trading with ancient Rome and with places as far away as the Mediterranean Ocean. Now, it's important to know that no one person traveled the entire Silk Road. Say you have a caravan of merchants and animals and you want to trade, and you start out on this purple line and you head east. You meet up with another caravan represented by the red line, and they trade where the two lines meet, and then the people on the red line head east and they trade again with the people on the green line. So you have overlapping caravans that no one person is traveling the entire route. They're traveling a small part of the route, and trade goods are gradually making their way from one end of the Silk Road to the other through these caravans. So what were the trade goods that Han China had to offer that helped to make it so prosperous and so wealthy from all this Silk Road trade? Well, for one thing, there was silk, which we talked about before. Silk was incredibly valuable. It was strong. It felt nice against the skin, and it was really hard to make. And it was that China kept the manufacture of silk a secret. Nobody else knew how to make it. So people in the Mediterranean world and in Central Asia wanted silk, and the only people they could get it from were the Chinese. Another important trade good is porcelain, which China developed as an improvement over clay pots. Now they have porcelain pots and porcelain dishes. Also, you could make decorative statues and figurines out of porcelain, like you see here with this tortoise. And then there's paper. In the ancient world, people were writing on papyrus, or they were writing on parchment, which didn't hold up very well. It would crumble and fall apart. It wasn't as good as paper. And here, the same picture I showed you before of the man taking his civil service exam, you can see that the Chinese were using paper as part of their civil service exam process. Now, it wasn't just trade goods like silk and porcelain and paper that were traded on the Silk Road. Also, ideas spread through the Silk Road. It was an important example of cultural diffusion. And possibly the most important idea that spread along the Silk Road was Buddhism. Now, we talked about Buddhism in our last unit on India, and how Siddhartha Gautama founded Buddhism in India, and then it was spread out of India by the Mauryan Emperor Ashoka, who sent missionaries to spread Buddhism to the rest of Asia. The way those missionaries spread Buddhism was along the trade routes of the Silk Road. Now, when Buddhism came to China, it became popular because by that point, Han China was starting to fade, and people were unhappy, and Buddhism gave them something to help them feel better. China also changed Buddhism, adapted it, and made a new version of Buddhism. This is an Indian picture of the Buddha, and it shows you something about the Indian version of Buddhism. There's a focus on, here you can see that the Buddha is fasting, and he's eaten so little food that you can see his bones through his skin. Indian Buddhism is very focused on that kind of like rejecting the things of the physical world, like food, and turning away from them. Chinese Buddhism is more accepting of the physical world. As you can see here by this large overweight picture of the Buddha, he's made to look like he's overweight, though Chinese Buddhists would say that he's not actually overweight, that's actually his soul. He has such a large soul that it can't be contained by a small body. So Chinese Buddhism also changed because the Buddha became treated more as a god-like figure than in Indian Buddhism. So to summarize, the Han Dynasty was a golden age for classical China, and a couple reasons for that. The civil service system helped to create educated government officials who were really effective rulers. And also the Silk Road spread trade goods and ideas that helped to finally connect China to the rest of the world and help make it incredibly wealthy. Thank you for watching. Next time we'll talk about how China affected Japan.